You're listening to the Practical Wealth Show with Curtis May.
All right, guys. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Practical Wealth Show. So I am really excited to have Mr. Carl Allen all the way from the UK. And so Carl's a private equity firm. So he is a world-class entrepreneur. So I have a real treat for today. Investor, corporate deal maker, and has worked on more than 330 transactions worth close to, hear this now, 48 billion with a B dollars. And so his nearly 30-year career, Carl has analyzed thousands of businesses, big and small, in 17 different countries across every business sector, including technology, pharmaceuticals, transportation, logistics, engineering, manufacturing, aerospace, professional services, finance, packaging, and corporate clothing. We're here to talk about today is he has a group called the Dealmaker Wealth Society. And so what we're going to talk about today is a lot of stuff, but buying and selling small businesses, how to grow your empire through acquisition. So if you're a business owner or would-be business owner or would-be empire builder, I want you to perk up because this interview is for you. Carl, welcome to the Practical Wealth Show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
My pleasure. I'm excited. So, Carl, what did I leave out? I know I left out a lot because you got a long and storied career, but tell our listeners a little bit about your journey as you work into.
Sure. So I'm, 50 this year. So I've been at this almost 30 years. 1992, I graduated from university, and I went to work for an investment bank. So I worked for Bank of America, doing something called mergers and acquisitions. So buying and selling businesses for other people, the likes of GE, Boeing, Microsoft, IBM, and so on. Then I did an MBA, and then I went to work in private equity, and we invested in a technology company that we sold to Hewlett-Packard. I ended up going to work for Hewlett-Packard as one of their internal M&A directors, and I was off doing deals all over the world. And 2008, I quit. I retired.
Okay.
I almost missed the birth of my son, who's now 12. I was in Russia trying to close a deal, and my wife went into labor 4 weeks early, 4 weeks premature. So I had to get myself back to the UK in a heartbeat, and I literally just caught the birth of my son. As I ran into the hospital, the little guy came out, and I thought,
wow.
Yeah, I made a lot of money in this game. And I decided at the grand old age of 37, I was done. I needed to be with my family and give them everything I had. So I quit, and I lasted about 3 weeks. I couldn't survive going from working 100 hours a week, flying all over the world to nothing. So I decided to become a business broker. So business brokers buy and sell small companies on behalf of their clients. And the irony was the first deal that I got to sell, rather than selling it to a competitor, I ended up buying it. It was a really cool business. And I'd learned through my Wall Street career the concept of the technical terms are leveraged buyout. But in simple terms, it's buying a business using other people's money. So using external financing to be able to acquire that company. So I decided to buy it. I built a great relationship with the owners of the business, and they agreed to sell me their company. So I bought that. I grew that business and then sold it, and then was kind of bitten by the bug, and have bought and sold lots and lots of small businesses over the last 12 years. I'm still doing it. I own a private equity fund in the United States. We're buying and growing and selling businesses all the time. And then 5 years ago, I was inundated by people wanting me to teach them how this worked. And people would come to my house, or I would meet them in a hotel, and I would coach them on, how to buy businesses, how to buy a company, how to find a deal, how to find the money, how to negotiate a win-win deal between you and the seller, and then what to do with the business once you'd owned it, and then how to scale it and then sell it for a big payday. And so I was doing that, but there was no leverage in that. So in 2016, I created a coaching and mentoring program, which virtually takes entrepreneurs through that journey. And today we have over 5,000 people in that program. from every corner of the world, primarily in the United States, UK, Canada, and Australia. Those are the four magic countries, I would say, to do these types of deals. And there's millions of businesses for sale. There's over 2.4 million small businesses for sale in the US right now.
Wow.
And a lot of that's driven by baby boomers that are retiring. A lot of that's driven by entrepreneurs that get bored and frustrated. They build a business, they prove a concept, and then they decide they want to go and do something else. So these are everyone's selling their companies, especially now through COVID, and we can buy these businesses at massive discounts. But not only that, we can use other people's money to buy them. So that's what I do.
That's so much to unpack here. I want to, so think of you, so you had a really, your corporate career taught you kind of the guts of how to think big business and bring that to the business broker, being a business broker. But I think your mindset of big deals didn't scare you because you've been doing them basically since you were 20.
Yeah, and what's really interesting was when I started to become a broker, what I hated about that was that, again, I was back making money for other people. And I thought, I know how to do this. I know how to do deals. I know how to raise money. I know how to negotiate. I know exactly how to grow a business when I buy it. So why don't I just buy my own companies and generate that kind of wealth? Because, yeah, you can make good money. I was earning $1 million a year as a corporate M&A guy.
Right.
But when you buy a business for nothing because you're using other people's money and you sell it 3 years later for $5 million, you make a lot more money and it's a lot more fun. And I guess where I was at 37, 12 years ago is I was just sick and tired of making money for other people. And I was sick and tired of being chained to my desk or on airplanes or at the beck and call of other people, making them, in some cases, billions and billions of dollars. And I wanted my own wealth creation vehicle. We were chatting at the start of the show. All of the money that I make from buying and selling businesses, I reinvest into real estate. Mm-hmm. It's very rare that I put my own money into a deal. I recently did that, but it's the exception rather than the rule. There's so much capital available that you can leverage for great deals. Why should I invest my own money when I can use other people's?
Right. So debt is good. It's good because there's good debt and bad debt. And you're using debt to buy an asset, a real thing.
Absolutely. And when you use debt to buy an asset, the key phrase, the key element to that is, can that asset generate you cash flow, which is more than the cost of servicing that debt?
Yeah.
And that's the $1 million question. If you can raise money to do a deal and that business is generating you $50,000 a month of free cash flow, and it's costing you $20,000 a month to service the debt, the financing, then you're putting $30,000 a month into your pocket from a business asset. And the good thing, and what we really focus on in our mentoring, is you don't have to be the guy or the gal that has to go in and run that business every day. I own a bunch of different businesses all over the world. I don't work in any of them. I have general managers or operators that are driving those buses for me. They are keeping those buses on track. So I work on my businesses, not in my businesses.
That is so, it's funny because this is, in my mind, I have a financial services practice and I'm thinking, well, I could buy other practices, but I could do other businesses. That actually excites me more than real estate. But I'm like, but back in my head, I'm thinking, how am I going to run all this stuff? Because I get shiny object syndrome. But in my mind, I want to be like Magic Johnson, right? Who buys all these, all these companies. And I feel like I could do that. And so you just kind of cleared that up for me. But I want to come back because it's not about me. But I think, I want to walk through our listeners. I think so. Let's say you're hearing this and you have a corporate job. Let's say you're a real estate investor. Let's say you already are in business and you want to grow. Okay. So let's talk to that person. And so what's the value of buying a business rather than starting a new one?
That's a great question. So if you're working for someone else right now, let's say you're an engineer and you're working for GE, and you want to own a business, then you've got two options. You can start your own or you can buy an existing business. So think of it like owning a car. So I just ordered a Tesla. So Tesla's and just come to the UK, and so did I go and buy all the components? Did I buy the wheels, the chassis, the battery, the giant iPad, the wheel, the glass, the windscreen wipers? And then did I go and watch a bunch of YouTube videos, lay all the components on my driveway and figure out, how the heck do I put this thing together, and think about all those components as the functional components of a business in a startup? Or did I go to the Tesla dealership, buy one that they'd already built, and finance the purchase through Tesla? So it's exactly the same analogy, because when you start a company from scratch, it's what I call the no problem. You have no employees, no customers. You don't yet have a product or service typically. You've got no premises, no equipment, no employees. You've got no cash, no credit, and you've got no reputation. So that's why 96% of all businesses fail within the first 10 years. The odds are stacked heavily against you. Whereas you go and find a business that's survived and is profitable, that the owner doesn't want anymore. And people sell businesses for lots of different reasons. There's a misconception people sell businesses because they're bad, that they're not. It's very easy to vet. If the business is making money, then it's obviously doing something right. And I only advocate buying profitable businesses. But business owners, they want to retire. They get sick. Some of them, they die in some cases. They get tired, bored, frustrated, burnt out. They run out of ideas. COVID, I'm seeing some amazing businesses thrive through COVID, but the owners, it's like the straw that broke the camel's back. Do you guys say that in the US?
Yes. Yes.
The final thing, and we saw this in 2008. We saw this after 9/11. We saw this in the recessions in the 80s. Business owners don't like change. They don't like uncertainty. And that drives a lot of them to come to market and decide to sell their businesses. So it's quicker, easier, and a lot less stressful buying somebody else's business, innovating with that business, than going and reinventing the wheel and starting from scratch.
I love it. Okay. And so what criteria do you recommend people have when they're deciding on what type or what kind of business to buy?
A great deal for me is going to be a very different deal for you, and a very different deal to every one of your amazing tribe that's listening. So we've all got different requirements, but there's three things that you really need to dial in when you're looking to buy any type of business. So the first one is that business has got to be a fit for you. So going back to the engineer example, if you've spent 15, 20 years working for GE, it would make sense for you to go and buy an engineering or a manufacturing business. You wouldn't buy a restaurant. You wouldn't buy a chemical processing company. So it's all about staying in your lane. And it's about doing deals in areas that you're passionate about. If you own a technology company right now, if you own a software company and you want to double the size of your business in a day, go and buy another software company, or go and buy a services company or something complementary to what you do, and then you can cross-sell your products and services between those businesses, and then save a ton of cash flow when you combine those two operations together. So step number one is pick something in an area that you're passionate about, you can add a lot of value to, and a bonus would be you have a network that you can plug in and leverage to be able to grow and optimize that business. The second criteria that you need to look for is you want to find a distressed seller of a good business. I'll say that again, a distressed seller of a good business, not the other way around. You don't want a good seller of a distressed business.
Right.
A distressed business is a business that's losing money or is in some trouble. You don't want to do those deals because you're just buying somebody else's headache. You want to buy a good business that's profitable and can work without the owner being there. And as I mentioned before, owners decide to sell for lots of different reasons. So it's finding somebody that's got a high degree of motivation to want to come out of the business. And then the third element that you want to look for is when we talk about using other people's money, if you're using banks, you're using the SBA, you're partnering with angel investors, So anyone that's got capital that you want to partner with to buy that business, to do that deal, they're going to want to see either assets or cash flows, or ideally both. They want to see that the business has got the ability to be able to repay the financing that's being utilized for you to buy it.
Right.
If you need to raise $1 million to buy a business and the business is not making any cash flow, it's going to be pretty hard to raise that money unless you've got a really quick surefly pan to turn that business around. So those are the three things that you're looking for. You're looking for something in your lane. You're looking for a distressed seller of a good business, and you want a business that's got some good financial DNA that's going to allow it to be acquired with some debt.
Let me ask. I want to piggyback on that. It's funny because I watched Sandy Weil like reemerge, and I would study them, and then they would buy. He would from like commercial credit to buy American Can that became Primerica, and then they bought Travelers, and then they would add. It was all in financial services, but they would cross sell, and he's the first one that really made that work. But there was synergy there. Let's say because one of the things you said was professional practice. So if let's say I have this is personal consulting for Curtis, a growing financial practice, but let's say let's say I could buy an accounting firm or a property and casualty agency where the owner, the kids don't want it, or something like. Is that what you mean? Like just thinking about things that I could do where I could add value, but where I could put somebody in there to run it.
Yeah. So if you own a business already, there's three types of businesses you can acquire. So you can acquire a competitor. So someone that's doing exactly what you're doing. So you're just doubling down on your market share. Mm-hmm. You can buy something in your supply chain. If you're an engineering company, you make wings for Boeing, and you're buying millions of dollars of components from somebody every year, just go and buy them. And then you're doubling down on your margin, and you're locking in a stronger position in your supply chain. Or the third place that you can acquire is you can acquire a complementary business that opens a parallel market for you, and then you can cross-sell your products and services between them. So, for example, I'm having a lot of construction work done in my garden right now. So there's a hardscaping company that's here most of the time, building a pool and building patios and all those different things. I was chatting to him over a coffee one day, and he said, dude, I'm really looking to grow my business, but I'm tired of hustling for new customers. I said, well, go and buy another business. Go and buy a landscaping business, because you can then do the hardscaping and the landscaping for the same customer. And you can use the same crews to do that work. Wow. And you can cross-pollinate a lot of your products and services. And this is what the big guys do. Right. The big guys grow through mergers and acquisitions. And this is where I was trained as a Wall Street guy and then as a corporate guy. And what's really interesting is one of the most important questions I get asked all the time is, how are businesses valued? And businesses typically are valued on a multiple of their earnings. So if you're a really small business and you're generating sub $500,000 a year in earnings, your business on average is going to be worth between 2 and 3 times the earnings as valuation. Mm-hmm. If you're a business cranking out $5 million a year in earnings, then your business is going to be valued more like 8 to 10 times. So if you're a big guy and you're buying a small guy, you're buying at 2.5 to 3 times earnings. As soon as those earnings hit your balance sheet, all of a sudden you're 4 or 5xing the value of the business that you've just acquired. So not only does it improve your valuation, obviously it's a lot quicker and easier to scale by acquisition than by doing it organically. So if you start a company and you grow to $1 million in revenues, say within 5 years, and believe it or not, 95% of all businesses that ever start never get to $1 million. But if you get to $1 million, it might take you another 2 years or 3 years to get to 2 million or 3 million. You can do it in a couple of months. if you go and acquire another company.
Right.
So if you're doing $1 million, go and buy another business doing $1 million, combine the two together. So you're now at 2. You
Right.
can do some cross-selling.
Right.
So then you get to 2.5. And then the amount of money you can strip out of a combined operation is mind-boggling.
Wow.
It
Wow.
really,
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah. I mean, and I was thinking about this. If you understand marketing, like if you can evaluate a business, like a lot of times I was thinking I was doing a little bit of market consulting, and it's you can see where the owners are like, all right, they're kind of on autopilot, right? But you see, it's only 3 ways to grow revenue: get more customers, increase your conversions, increase customer value. And so if I'm looking at this with fresh eyes, I might see ways to double the business in like 6 months to a year, if just on the assets they already have.
So you've nailed one of the points I made earlier, that you can only do that if you're buying a business in a sector that you know, or you have what I call a horizontal skill set. And a horizontal skill set is you have an expertise that can move the needle in pretty much any business. So if you're a financial professional or you're a marketing professional, then you can apply those principles, pretty much to any business. And what's really interesting is I would say 8 out of 10 businesses that I talk to, and I talk to business owners every single day, 7 days a week. And in fact, I was out yesterday looking at a construction company, and I ask this question all the time. The first question I ever ask a seller is, why are they selling? Because I want to understand their psychology, because these deals, they're more about psychology than they are about numbers. The second question I ask them is, what's their business development strategy? What marketing do they do? And most sellers will tell you they don't do any. They'll say, Carl, you know what? This is what's great about our business. We don't have to do marketing. We don't need salespeople. It's all repeat customers, and it's all word of mouth referrals. And I love those businesses for 2 reasons. The first one is, if a business is thriving just through repeat customers and they're referring them to their friends and colleagues, that's a great business. That means you've got raving fans, not customers. Yeah. Because number 2, I know as soon as I buy it and I plug in all of my marketing strategies and I get my teams involved, we're going to move the needle on the top line whilst relying on the recurring revenues and cash flows that business has been generating year after year after year with that really loyal raving fan customer base. So those are the perfect deals for me. And when you look at a baby boomer owned business, you tend to get that a lot because they don't typically use social media, they don't leverage technology, they don't have state-of-the-art systems in their companies to really move the needle. But that doesn't matter because they're still making good money. Yeah. You go in and you polish those businesses up and you fire the growth engines, you can make a lot of money if you're buying in your sector of choice, if you're buying in an area that you know something about. It's really, really important.
And so you could take the cash flow and use the cash flow to reinvest in upgrading their systems. Is that one of the things that you would do? Instead of doing new financing, if it's already cash flow and you can just reinvest in the business with that free cash flow.
Yeah, because there's three ways you can make money doing these types of deals. So the first way you can make money is if you buy a business and let's say you need $1 million for a closing payment and you raise 1.2 million, then you've got a couple of $100,000 surplus cash. You can take that off the table at closing as like a fee and do something with that. Treat yourself, buy some real estate, whatever you want. So that's the first thing that you can do. The second thing then is the owner of the business. If it's generating $50,000 a month of free cash flow, that's your money because you're the business owner. So you can take that out, spend it, do whatever you want. Now, I don't do that. I might take $10,000 out a month or $20,000 and stack those kind of executive salaries, if you will. Mm-hmm. But what I like to do is reinvest a lot of that cash flow, to your point, because that's going to make the business grow quicker. It's going to make the profits grow quicker. And as we said before, businesses are worth a multiple of their profits, and they compound because the bigger the profit, the bigger the multiple. Because when I sell that business in 1 year or 3 years or however long, That's where you get the biggest payday. That's where you make the most money out of doing these deals. Because think about it, you're buying $1 million business with no personal investment, and you sell it within 3 years for $5 million. Let's say you still owe $500,000 to the bank, then you're netting $4.5 million from one deal for 3 years' work. So you're netting $1.5 million a year, amortized over those 3 years, plus the cash flow that you've been sucking out of that business as the owner, each and every month or each and every 2 weeks. And if you buy a bunch of those and you get other people to run them for you, then you can quickly build a private equity style portfolio.
Wow.
Working part-time. And that's basically, that's what I do.
Wow. That, so what he described, so one of the things that we're starting to talk about, and in this show, I'm going to give you a link to, in the notes, a report that we give away called The Velocity of Money. And so one of the things that there is the accumulation method that you hear from Wall Street, just telling you to buy and hold, dollar cost average, get out of debt, buy term investor, different asset allocation. Carl just totally blew that out of the water. Whereas, because you can't create economic independence in 10 years or less doing what you're being taught by the financial institutions, but you could totally build multi-generational wealth with what you described, what I call the velocity method. That's not what you call it, but that's what is happening. Would you agree with that? Not to put words in your mouth, but that's what,
yep.
Boom, you just blew my mind.
Yeah, 100%. And that's, that's why I have a private equity firm, because we can buy lots of businesses. We're compounding those earnings. We're reinvesting those earnings into other deals. And that's what we do. So, and I come from a big place of abundance. And I decided 4 or 5 years ago that, I had a skill set that was pretty unique, and I wanted to share it with people. And a lot of people say to me, why do you teach this stuff? Why do you coach people? And a lot of it comes down to the legacy I want to build. And I get a big kick out of, changing people's lives. I've had people that they've sold their furniture to enroll to one of my courses.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're making $1 million a year. I have one student who's now become a really good friend of mine. He bought 5 businesses in the UK, took his family on an African safari, and ended up buying the resort.
Wow.
he loved the resort so much. His wife made a joke and said, "Hey, Mr. Hotshot Dealmaker, wouldn't it be cool if you could buy this resort?" He went to talk to the owner and he negotiated a deal, and now he owns it.
Wow.
Still waiting for my invite. Chris, if you're listening, I'm still waiting for my invite to go. But you're only one deal away. You do one deal. I've done 350 deals almost. And what I would say to people that feel intimidated by this, you just do one deal, and I'll coach you if you want. I'll coach you through the process, because I've been doing it nearly 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
One deal, you will be 80 to 90% of the learning curve. Once you've been through the psychology of just one deal and you now understand the process, you could do 5 deals, you could do 10 deals. It doesn't matter. But some people, want to buy a business to operate it, and that's completely fine. I don't do that, but I have hundreds and hundreds of students that have done that. They want to buy a company and they want to go and they want to run it every day. That's fine. There's a difference between being an owner operator and an owner investor. I own businesses in Australia. I own businesses in the UK. I own businesses in the US. Obviously, I can't work in those businesses concurrently. I only see some of those businesses once a year, but I have some really simple flywheels, really simple dialed-in scoreboards. So I know every hour of every day how those businesses are doing. It's like a magic piece of paper. I can be on a desert island. If somebody comes out of the water and they've got a piece of paper for all the businesses that I own, there's only 5 or 6 numbers I really care about. And they change depending on which business it is. It's generally revenue, it's earnings, it's number of customers, it's size of our order pipeline, it's those, our employee satisfaction scores, it's those types of things. And as long as those numbers are in range and they're tracking, I leave my general managers alone just to keep driving those businesses forward. And they're my partners as well. When I buy a business, I typically promote a senior employee within the business to run it for me, and I give them equity. I make them my partner. I incentivize them. I make them my co-shareholder, and they'll kill themselves for me to grow that business because they're getting a nice chunk of the monthly cash flow.
Yeah, people work for ownership. How do you evaluate whether it's worth buying? I think that's a major question. Like when you're looking at a lot of deals, what's your your principles, your philosophy, and what because you talked about psychology of the owner. Sometimes you value that over the numbers. And so
every deal I look at, I pass them through those three filters that we first talked about. So is it a business that's going to fit me? Can I add value to it? Is it a business that's got the right seller psychology? And then does it have the numbers to make this type of deal work? Then it all comes down to negotiation, because at the end of the day, and this is really interesting, I didn't understand this until I closed my first ever individual deal. So when I was a Wall Street guy and I was a corporate guy, psychology is not as important. Psychology is a lot more important when you're buying a $3 million business, say, that's been around for 30 years. The owner has spent more time in that business than they have with their own family. They've sweat, they've put blood, sweat, tears, everything into that business. And for whatever reason, now they decide to sell it. Money isn't always the driver. What I found a lot actually is a lot of business owners, they care more about their legacy. They care more about the safeguarding of their employees and their customers. They care about the culture of the business. They want a safe, trusted pair of hands to take the business on, keep the name, and improve it, take it to the next level. It's like rehoming a dog that you can't take care of anymore. You want it to go to a good home. You want somebody to look after it and love it and treat it well and let it thrive. And that's what I found. So that's a big filter that I have.
Yeah.
That's a really big filter that I have. And for me, I want to buy a business that I know can scale. Like, for example, I went to see a construction company yesterday, a 62-year-old owner, 30 years since he founded it, great business, generating tons of cash flow. His competitors are calling him every week trying to buy that business. But he wants somebody, he cares more about his name above the door than he does about the size of the check. And what's great about deals is some of these sellers, they get a lot more interested in the deal structure than they do about the amount of money they get at closing. So I bought businesses where I've just paid the seller over time. I've not had to raise any financing. I bought a media company in LA off a 70-year-old owner about 18 months ago. And I said to her, what do you want? What's a great outcome for you? She said, well, three things. Well, so four things actually. So the first thing is you can't change the name of the business. Number two, you can't fire anybody. Number three, I need some money to cover my closing costs. I said, well, okay, how much is that? She said about $20,000. So great. There was $100,000 in the bank, in the business. Just take $20,000 and pay for your attorney. And she said, number four, I'm making X thousands of dollars a month out of this business. I'd like that to continue. And that's great. That in our world is called seller financing. So you're buying the business over time using the cash flows of the business to pay the seller. So it's like the seller becomes the bank.
Yes.
She didn't want the money in one big chunk. She was happy to get more money over a longer period of time. And I just used the cash flow in the company to pay her, and I still am. So it's a great deal.
I mean, I could talk to you all day. I know. But so one of the things that we talk to our clients about, you've got to invest. Your number one asset is you, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a thought process that had to shift for people to be able to do this. So that's mindset, right? And there's a skill set. So what I've heard is sales, understanding marketing, understanding negotiation is a serious skill set, and your network, right? Speak to the skills that you find your students have, your successful students has, and or how to develop them. How you develop them in yourself, or how people begin to think about that and develop those skills.
Yeah, sure. So there's three things to be successful in this game, and I think these three things apply to anything in life. You need skills, tools. You need skills, tools, and mindset. So I'll tell you. I'll give you an analogy. So if Tiger Woods called me today and said, 6 months from now, you and I are going to tee off at Augusta. We're going to play around the golf, and I spent the next 6 months learning all about mindset and taking a psychology degree and studying all the time. I'd get to that first tee pumped and as confident and as assured as I could be, but I won't be able to hit the ball. Whereas on the other side, if I'd gone and spent 6 months on the driving range every day, I'd turn up at Augusta in 6 months really nervous, but I'd be able to hit the ball down the middle of the fairway. And then there's a strategy. So you need a plan. You need to know what you're doing. And for me, you got to combine all those three things. And those are the three things that we teach people. We teach them about the deal-making mindset. What you need to do as a deal maker, what limiting beliefs you need to eradicate from your life, and what you need to think, feel, and believe, to be able to do this. And then it's all about the tools that people need. The documents that you need, the things you need to say and not say when you're in a seller meeting, the questions you need to ask, how to interpret a financial statement, which people freak out when you talk about numbers. But,
right.
We have a chant in our business, I love numbers and numbers love me. The numbers in these deals, it's high school math. It's not difficult. And we have all the spreadsheets that you plug 7 numbers in from an income statement a seller gives you, and you've got a deal ready to roll inside of about 5 minutes. It's just a tool that we've generated, and I still use that on all my deals today. And then we have a strategy, we have a formula that we coach people to follow. And it's like cooking. I've learned to cook during lockdown, which is quite interesting. My wife said to me, you're going to be home all this time, you're not traveling anymore. I think you should help us do the family cooking. I thought, well, I don't know how to cook. So I bought a couple of recipe books, and I thought, well, this is like my deal making system. If I follow the recipe step by step, and I get the right ingredients, and I get the right tools like a food mixer and an oven and all those different things, and I do it exactly the way they do it in the book with a little bit of practice, I'm going to be able to generate the same plate of food. So I'm now a master chef, just because I've applied my own principles to something that, I'd never learned how to do before. And it's the same in buying a business. I've got the recipe book, I've got the tools, and I've got the ingredients, and I can give you that deal-making identity through a couple of little mindset shifts, and then you can go out and you can do deals. And I've coached over 5,000 people to do this. And that's what makes me get up every day. It's not about the wealth creation. That comes out of my private equity firm. What lights me up now is seeing people do this, following my methods, following my formulas, and building phenomenal lives. So that's what really inspires me to keep doing this.
You got a new best friend. Okay, so we're gonna be in touch. But this is because it's we want to generate multi-generational wealth, and I think that I was telling my kids, I was blessed because I never got that go to school, get your education, get a good job talk. My dad told me you never make any money, work for somebody else. So I've always, my grandfather was in business, my dad was in business, and so I've got my own practice, but this is like expanding, like just what you just said here. It's like how to be Buffett, like my own version of Warren Buffett, how to do that, how to build a private equity firm.
The Buffett of Main Street. I like it.
Yeah. What action steps would you have for a new business owner in the first 100 days as a business owner? And then what is maybe some of your books, and then I want you to tell them how to reach you?
Yeah, so I'm a crazy reader. I've always been a reader because I travel so much. I hate watching movies.
Mhm.
So although I recently watched the Netflix documentary about Michael Jordan, that was freaking awesome.
Yes, me
Uh,
too. Right.
teaches you the Last Dance teaches you about the power of a team. Love that show. But normally I'm a reader, so I'm reading lots and lots of different books. So a great book to kind of reinforce your own story is I love recommending. Robert Kiyosaki's a friend of mine. I love recommending the Rich Dad Poor Dad book.
Mhm.
That's a great book. And then I love reading autobiographies about entrepreneurs that have done truly amazing things. My favorite autobiography, Shoe Dog. It's the story of Phil Knight and how he
Mm.
built Nike from the boot of his car in the 70s selling Japanese imported shoes to redesigning the tennis shoe, the running shoe, and creating a $50 billion company. So those are two books I would definitely recommend. In terms of where to start, so I have some free training that I'd like to share with your tribe. If they go to trainwithcarl.com/practical wealth, that's trainwithcarl.com/practical wealth, they can download some free tools and some free training to kind of get them started on this path. And really, the first thing that you need to do if you want to go into this way of life, either to buy your first business to get out of a W-2, or if you own a business to buy another one to geometrically scale, then it's all about making that decision. Make a
Mm.
decision. People think, decisions happen in an instant, don't they? It
Yeah.
just takes sometimes years for people to arrive at that place where things have got to change. So you make the decision that this is something that you want to do. And I think going through that free training will, because this isn't for everybody,
Right.
it will convince you one way or the other that this is something that you should do. And then once you've done that, it's all about taking action, and it's all about execution trumps knowledge every single time. You can read
Oh.
$1,000, you could watch 1,000, you could buy 1,000 courses. Doesn't matter. It's how do you apply it? Can you take action every day? Can you get into the rhythm of doing something? And the way I've designed all my training programs, and there'll be details in that guide for people that want to go further, no obligation, of course, but we've designed it so that people can do it flexible around all their other things, because there are some people that maybe they've just been laid off and they've got a little bit of money and they've got 40 hours a week to hit this. Great. You own businesses in a matter of weeks. Or there's people that, they have a job, they have a family, they have other commitments in their life, their church, their community, or whatever. So they might only have 2 to 3 hours a week to kind of deploy to this. So it's like a flexible
Yeah.
coaching system where whatever time you have, we make sure you're optimized to be able to, get some results really, really quickly.
That is awesome. You're saying this. You think about books. There's a book called "Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun?" He learned it from Michael Milken how to do leverage buyouts. And so when you're saying this, I'm thinking that's what this book is about. But Carl is teaching you how to do what he did. So I want to expose people to, hey, look, you've got to think differently. You definitely need to go download and consume all his stuff, okay? And then figure out this is right for you. If it is, boo, you can really create multi-generational wealth within your family, which is the goal of the Practical Wealth Show. Any closing thoughts? I want to get all the nuggets I can out of you. And I just want to thank you so much for being on the Practical Wealth Show.
Thank you very much indeed. It's been a pleasure to speak to you. Please keep in touch.
I will. All right, guys, go out there, make some stuff happen, download that stuff and consume it. let me know how you like it. Let's talk about them. We have a membership program that you're going to see links to in the show notes. And then what we'll do is we'll have other meetings behind our membership wall where you can do Q&As and stuff while we're doing it. So go out there and be prosperous and listen, like, and share. All right. Talk to you later, guys.
Thanks for listening to Practical Wealth. To access the show notes and resources, go to practicalwealthshow.com. To get your questions on the show, go to practicalwealthshow.com. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Before you make any investment decisions, consult a professional. This show is copyrighted by Practical Wealth. Written permission